Many of you may have seen the story. A strange trend of food processing plant fires appears across the U.S. from timcast.com. At least 16 fires have broken out at food processing plants, impacting the nation's supply of beef and poultry. Not to mention this avian flu, where they're culling millions of chickens, supply chain constraints, remnants of the COVID lockdowns, the war in Ukraine, fertilizer costs skyrocketing, and exports diminished because of it. We are expecting insane food shortages. But let's bring it back to this story, because I did mention this the other day. We've talked about it here and there, and we don't know exactly what this means. A grand conspiracy? Probably not. A series of unfortunate events. Well, yes, literally, and it will have an impact. But take a look at this. When things happen, man, they seem to just happen, don't they? Daily Mail reports, no survivors on small twin-engine plane that crashed. Crashed where? Near Georgia General Mills plant. Cops say all that's left at the scene is charred metal. Did it cause any damage? They say there was no immediate reports of any injuries to anyone on the ground at the plant that produces General Mills cereal. Now, perhaps this is nothing. Everybody seems to be fine except for the people no one at the plant was harmed. Unfortunately, those on the plane lost their lives. Covington police told local reporters the plane crashed in an isolated parking lot near an industrial plant just off Interstate 20, a major east-west artery in Georgia. So perhaps it's all coincidence, and there's nothing here. Except for this story from April 15th. Plane crashes into Idaho potato and food processing plant, killing the pilot, cops say. Okay, I want to come to this part of the story. But now I'm really, really interested in digging into what's going on with the strange wave of damage and fires at food processing plants. I'm going to go there. Let's go dark. Cyber war? I don't know. It's easy to throw those things out there and rile people up and say the end is nigh, and we really don't know. And right now, there's no evidence. Occam's razor would suggest that in the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct. In this case, sometimes fires happen. And I wonder if this is why I wasn't so big on it, but I asked the crew, see what you can find. For all we know, fires like this happen all the time. And the issue is we often just don't pay attention. But now, because of the food shortages, we're really paying attention. So let's put it this way. Regardless of why we are seeing this wave of damage at our food processing plants, y'all better take this seriously. Bazinga reports, food shortages in America. Should we worry about the recent string of food processing plant disasters? Why? Why is all that happening right now? Now, I'm not familiar with Bazinga. I can only say they're NewsGuard certified, 95 out of 100. So I can accept that. If mainstream establishment press is saying, these disasters are going to hit us where it hurts, I'm actually starting to get more worried about things. Now, my friends, in the past several months, I've been going really hard on emergency food supplies. Think what you will about what's causing these things. There is a question that because of the war with Russia and Ukraine, the West is supplying weapons to Ukraine. Russia views this as the West declaring war, effectively calling it total war, or at least their media does in Russia. And a Russian host said this is World War III because Russia's at war with NATO infrastructure. Is it not at least plausible that Russian cyber attacks or Russian-aligned cyber attacks are hitting critical U.S. infrastructure where it hurts? If we don't have food, well, we're in trouble. Soldiers march on their bellies. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I can only say we know there's going to be a food crisis. We're already in one with food prices. And now with plants being hit and this avian flu, you better be paying attention, my friends. Head over to safeandreadymeals.com. Pick up emergency food if you have not done this already. I often shout them out, but I tend to only shout them out when there's a real story that makes me think it's a good thing to have. I recently purchased a large quantity for the studio and the office. A lot of people are like, Tim, don't tell anybody you have emergency supplies. Oh, come on. Yes, I know we don't have that much, but I did buy a lot. Relative to the amount of people who have work here, I don't think we're going to survive, an outright apocalypse, but safeandreadymeals.com. These are 3-month or 4-week emergency food supplies. They're buckets. You just put it in your closet. You can forget about it. They say up to a 25-year shelf life. The 3-month supply is 120 pounds of food. Amazing. Sealed into 6 rugged water-resistant buckets. Not to mention the packets themselves are all sealed. You put it in a pot. You mix some water with it. You heat it up. You got food. I don't know if you're going to need any of this stuff. I really, really don't know. I don't think you should dig a trench and build a bunker and supply yourself with 30 years worth of beans. But when we keep hearing these stories and it escalates, at the very least, I encourage you, research it and make a decision. Maybe it's not right for you. The last thing I want is for people to go out and buy wacky things they don't need. But with this stuff, the 4-week supply, sometimes it rains. Sometimes roads get shut down and you can just eat it. If in 10 years, I'll put it this way. If you bought this stuff for, $247 for the 4-week supply and you put it in your closet for 10 years, I guarantee you in 10 years, it'll be a $500 package. You can still eat it. So it's kind of like it's always going to be food, right? If you're concerned about this stuff, safeandreadymeals.com sponsors the show. We have sponsors that I shout out regularly. Safeandreadymeals.com is not one we regularly do, but in the past couple of months, I've been promoting them a lot because I genuinely am concerned. But again, I don't want to do shock, high pressure tactics or anything like that. I just think it does help the show when you buy from them because they're sponsored. It's a sponsored spot. And I think you should take this into consideration. Over COVID, we had shortages and we didn't starve. And honestly, in the United States, we've got morbidly obese homeless people. So I think we'll be okay. But just assess the situation. Here's my advice. Download a survival guide if you have not already. It'll take you 2 seconds, and sometimes you get lost. I'm not saying the world's going to end, but sometimes you go for a hike, you get lost. Have that, might save you. I don't know how you should try to survive. I'm just telling you, prepare for it. Maybe you decide you don't want to buy it. Maybe you do. I just think you guys should be paying attention to what's going on in the world. And maybe we'll be just fine. Timcast.com reports there's been an outbreak of fires in food processing plants across the nation in the last 6 months as food prices soar and supply chains are stressed to their limits. The fires began showing up regularly in the news after a fire closed a Tyson Foods meat processing plant in Kansas. The location was a primary beef processing location for the company and the U.S. supply chain, providing about 6% of U.S. beef. After the fire, analysts began speculating the impact could drive up market prices for meat nationwide. So, look, Timcast.com goes on to list all of these stories, and there's a meme going around showing, I believe it's 16 to 18 or so. So when we get news that a plane crashed in the parking lot of a food plant but didn't hit it, I'm like, why did that happen? Now, again, it didn't hit anything, but we have this story from aviationpros.com. A plane crashed into an Idaho potato and food processing plant, killing the pilot. The pilot was the only person in the plane and died during the crash. The single-engine plane crashed into the building and flipped on the roof, according to East Idaho News. The plane left Salt Lake City, yada, yada. The city of Heyburn sends its condolences to the family of the pilot. Seriously, sad to hear it. Gem State Processing sources 18,000 acres of Idaho potatoes. So we'll see if this is long-standing damage. But a plane crashed into a food processing plant at this time does not seem like, I don't know, it just seems weird, doesn't it? Here's Bazinga. They say, higher food prices and shortages. Our system has been betting on higher food prices since earlier this year. And of course, the war in Ukraine has put upward pressure on food and energy. But now one of our Twitter correspondents warns we may have food shortages in America as well. Let's start with the case of higher prices. A month before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, our system's top names had shifted to an energy and food focus. In that post, we noted we had 2 oil E&P stocks, Laredo Petroleum and Antero Resources, 2 oil ETFs, and a coffee ETN, and a corn ETF in our top 10 names. Since then, the energy and corn names have ripped higher, though coffee has cooled off a bit. I gotta be honest, I love coffee. I think the first thing I'm going to do after this is I'm going to order a lot of it because I would not like to not have coffee. Coffee's not all that great for you. It's not all that bad, but caffeine, you got to control the caffeine. So I dilute my coffee quite a bit and I put a lot of cream in it because I don't want too much caffeine, but man, a good cold brew, ooh, man, it's like drinking chocolate. It's just so good. We got this nitro cold brew stuff. Yeah, when the apocalypse happens, I'm totally going to miss nitro cold brew. That's for sure. They say, of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has played a role here. In addition to being one of the world's top exporters of wheat, Russia is also one of the top exporters of agricultural inputs such as oil, natural gas, and fertilizer. The war, plus the sanctions regime in response to it, have raised food and energy prices and raised the prospect of food shortages in countries such as Egypt, which are dependent on wheat imports. America, as an agricultural superpower, seemed less likely to suffer food shortages. Hey, there you go. Good news, right? But our correspondent Ben Braddock brought up another risk factor, a string of disasters at food production plants and warehouses, mainly in the U.S. How is this happening? No. Right now, I can understand that sometimes people win the lottery, okay? But for these major disasters to hit when we're already dealing with all of these other crises just seems suspect. Should we be worried about this? One respondent says we shouldn't. Warehouse fires are nothing new. They happen every year. You just have been not paying attention. Fair point. The actual scale of the loss is minuscule compared to the size of the actual food supply. In the U.S., there were approximately 1,240 warehouse fires per year between 2009 and 2013. All right, well, let's slow down. You're talking about 4 or a little bit more than 4 years. So we're looking at what? Just around 300 fires per year. So about a fire per day almost. With annual property damage of around 155 million, this represents a reduction in the number of fires over a 30-year observation period from 4,700 to around 1,200. Probably better building construction and probably cell phones. Seriously, when a disaster happens, a cell phone allows you to get the emergency services there right away and stop fires from happening and death. Another commenter draws a comparison to the panic about black churches burning down a few years ago. Remember the black churches are burning down all over the South media panic in the 90s? Turns out people didn't understand that there is a vast number of churches in this country and a lot of them catch fire. That's the point I've been trying to make. And that's why I'm like, don't freak out and then, buy a billion barrels of whatever. I just think stay focused and pay attention and be a reasonable, calculate, be strategic, be tactful. Here, so this is interesting to say. Twitter user Remnant offers suggestions in case we do have food shortages. If you haven't already, go to the store and at the very least buy a big bag of rice and some dry beans. Canned anything is good too. Go as calorie dense as possible. My recommendation, safeandreadymeals.com. They have full 2,000 calorie a day emergency food supplies. Another thing that I've done is I ordered these buckets that are freeze dried, sealed or whatever. I think it's like rice and beans. And it's not a 30-year supply, but the buckets last for 30 years. So you've got maybe a couple weeks, but you put the bucket in the basement and you forget about it. But, I shout at Safe and Ready Meals because it's like an all-in-one package. Ideally, you portion the stuff out and vacuum seal it. The stuff I'm talking about is already sealed. Plan for 2,000 calorie per person per day. You won't actually want to eat that much as you can survive on less to stretch the food, but it gives you headroom. The more you can get, the better. Minding budget and storage space limitations. Shoot for at least a couple weeks worth. Also, make sure you have some way to purify water if you have to. If you can afford it, get some bottled water to hold on to as a last resort. Get iodine tablets and ideally a gravity-fed filter as well. The filter and tablets are great because they require no energy. So I don't know how iodine tablets work. I think you put it in the water and it basically disinfects it. We're partially off the grid. We have our own water source. We're next to a major water source. We're close enough, but we're on a mountain. So guarded position, but we do have water nearby. I think we're going to be okay, and we have our own water source. But you need to be able to filter it. So my recommendation is, well, I shouldn't recommend. I'll recommend Safe and Ready Meals, but I don't want to tell you that's the end all be all. We have glass bottle water. We have a filter and we have empty glass bottles. So we can, periodically fill up the water and keep it clean and safe and stored. We have power reserves. We have solar emergency backups. I'm not saying to be a prepper and the world's going to end. But let me just point out, Bazinga is 95 out of 100, a US-focused financial news site aimed at investors that provides information about market securities and other investments. NewsGuard has them at 95 out of 100. This is mainstream. When the investors are being told, somebody knows something. These plants It may just be a media blip someone's hyping up. But now Tucker Carlson's talking about it. We're talking about it. But I will just say, when I see these stories and it's like mainstream investor news, make sure you're doing all of these things. I'm kind of like, I'm definitely going to be doing them. As for the 2,000 calories a day, one thing I can say is what I've been told is you never want to eat your emergency food. You want to store it until you have no choice. So you'll be wanting to forage and hunt, I suppose. But seriously, that'll be on you to figure out how to do that properly, because I don't know what you can or can't eat outside. I was walking through the woods on, we have most of Freedomistan is woods. And, someone I'm with picked up chives and they're like, forest onion, started eating it. And I'm like, I'm not going to eat that until I can figure it out. Because it's possible, apparently there are some plants that look like chives that are not edible. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on what is food and what isn't. I go to the grocery store and they're like chives and I'm like, all right. But I'm learning. We're learning how to plant. We have berry season out here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Yo, everybody who lives out here knows just how amazing it is in berry season, because you walk 10 feet and you got like 2 pounds of these wild Chinese raspberries. So amazing. And we've made like breads with it. We put it in our ice cream. Oh man, that was good. We also have pawpaw season out here, where at the end of September into October, you have so much pawpaw, you could not possibly eat it. It's amazing. It is a meaty fruit. It's like a mango and an avocado and a banana all combined. Big seeds, and they are juicy. It's crazy. It's like mango. It really is. It's like a pudding texture. We had so much pawpaw, nobody could eat it. We ate some and we were like, man, it's good. It really is. But it's just everywhere. You're walking through the woods and it hits you on the head. Figure things out, man. Because we have these stories. Washington Post says 4 hidden reasons food prices are crazy right now. And this is one of the other issues. If you buy emergency food now, I assure you the price on it will go up because of inflation very, very quickly. So that's kind of my attitude. I bought a bunch more. It was expensive, but my attitude is kind of like, dude, in 2 years, it's going to be way more expensive to buy this stuff and it lasts for forever. So, okay, whatever, I'll buy the food now. Hidden reasons. The invasion of Ukraine, we know. The avian flu. Look at this chicken right here. That's got me worried because we got Chicken City. And Chicken City is bringing in the big bucks. Ladies and gentlemen, last night, Chicken City generated $2,314 in a single day. Because Chicken City is what people crave. I'm somewhat kidding, but it is kind of true. It's just a show where chickens do chicken stuff. But every day we get I think we get like 10 eggs. So I've started eating more eggs because it's just there. Now we do buy feed for the chickens. We do buy treats for them. But when you have chickens, what I'm told is you take a plank of wood, a couple planks of wood with like some rope on it, and you just put it on the ground. The next day you come out and you move the plank somewhere else. The bugs underneath it will all get eaten up by the chickens. And the next day you move the plank, the bugs run out, and you keep doing that because the bugs want to hide. That's how you source the food, trick the bugs and made them into being eaten by the chickens. Chickens then lay eggs, you get some broilers, you eat the chickens, all that good stuff. But right now, the worst avian flu outbreak in the U.S. since 2015 is causing a major spike in the price of chicken. Pay attention. California's in a drought. Yikes, man. You kidding? Border truck jams. So we've got a border crisis affecting prices. California in a drought affecting prices. Avian flu. The war. Supply chain disruption. Yikes, man. World Bank warns that higher fertilizer and energy costs pose threat to harvests after global food prices soar by more than a third. I don't want to live in a city right now. And one of the biggest hurdles, we've had some, business deals and stuff. And I'm just like, dude, I can't do the city. I just legit don't want to be there. When the news is saying and screaming in your face, food shortages are coming. And we see these videos of people fighting over a can of beans in China. You've been warned, man. In Shanghai right now, there's videos of people going to supermarkets and the shelves are completely bare, literally nothing. And 2 guys start fighting over something. What do? Serious question. Will you wait until that day where it's you fighting over the last can of beans with Agnes in the parking lot of a Walmart as riots break out? Will that really happen? I don't think so. I don't think we'll get to that point. But you know where I don't want to be? During the pandemic, there were like 5-mile long lines of people getting food. I don't want to wait in that line. And so my attitude right now is if the apocalypse happens, I got food, probably not enough, but I think we'll make it. If shortages hit, I don't have to go wait in line at these supermarkets and cross my fingers and hope I'm going to be getting the food I need because we've got some backups. But we will do what we can to source from the stores. Now, even at the worst part of the pandemic and the lockdowns for us, I was still able to go to the store and grab food. But it really was crazy. Mac and cheese was gone. That was the weirdest thing to me. We were like, the beans were all there, and I'm like, the beans are the best thing. Why weren't people buying rice and beans? Mac and cheese took it all. All right, well, I guess people like mac and cheese. It's legit delicious, but yeah, I'm more worried about protein. Protein, I think, is what you want to worry about. Your body can break proteins down into sugar through a process called, I believe it's called gluconeogenesis. Is that what it is? Where it turns proteins into sugars if it needs to, but you're not going to make proteins from sugars. So you don't want your muscles breaking down, and you can't just eat rabbit. That's called rabbit starvation. In the end, here's what I think. To be the most reasonable, I think prices will go up and there will be lines. And if you prepare now, you can avoid the lines and you can get it cheaper. But I don't know. I can't see the future. I just kind of feel like when I see this kind of stuff happening and then I see these plane crashes, I'm like, I don't like this. I don't know how it worked out for you guys. I think the first thing we saw with the pandemic lockdown stuff was there were shortages, but prices went up. So you're still able to eat. Admittedly, we do really well here at Timcast, and it's thanks to all of you who watch and the members. So food prices have hit us. It's not as hard it is for the average person. I'm sure for all of you, it's been a kick in the teeth. I've noticed when I go to the grocery store, we get the same amount of groceries, and it's like double the prices to where it was a couple of years ago. And I'm like, wow, man. You know, we can afford to make sure we've got food stocked up for the crew, for our employees, for us. But it is getting crazy. It is getting absolutely crazy. I can't believe how much the emergency food prices have gone up. So anyway, look, periodic story about weird food stuff going on. It may be that just nothing happens in the end. The people in the cities turn out to be fine. You do you. You do you. I don't like the idea, like, you know, I don't like the videos where they're like, the food shortages are coming, everybody. You got to go do it now. And I'm just like, read some stuff. Check out these stories. Talk to your loved ones. See what they think about it. Because not everybody can afford to pick up one of these supplies. It's $200. Let me check real quick. $247 for a 4-week emergency food supply. 2,000 calories a day, 16 varieties. So you got breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 38 pounds. And it's $747 for a 3-month supply. Now imagine you've got 3 people. All right. So you're talking about $750 for a month for 3 people. Not everybody can afford that. But do the math, check the prices. Maybe even outside of safeandreadymeals.com, if you can figure out a way to just be ready and have rice and beans on hand and stuff like that, I think it's a good bet. What I ultimately think about the Safe and Ready Meals stuff is just you buy it once, you put it in your closet, you forget about it, and you've got a basic layer of security there. Store some water as well in some jugs. Be careful because they need to be sealed. They can go bad, bacteria and stuff like that. So I don't know. I really don't like the idea of pressure, but I really hope you guys consider this. And look at my Instagram. You can scroll down. I bought a bunch of this stuff too. I genuinely mean it. So this has been your periodic, the food crisis, eek, segment. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. And I will see you all then.